Welcome to another edition of the A-List Podcast. I'm your host, Sherrod Blakely, with Kwani, Lunis. A should stand for always on the move.
Seriously.
Kwani, Lunis. Clearly, we've got the car, the drive-by
live from the car.
Exactly.
Nothing will stop the pod. All right.
It will not stop the pod. The pod will go on and on and on, regardless of the locale.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, again, the A-List Podcast, subscribe, available on all your podcasting apps. That's what we are, and that's what we do. Now, we finally have games, or I should say games, because we can talk about the game they just played, the Boston Celtics. We can talk about the game that they're going to play soon down the road. Now, looking back, let's start from the beginning, which was at New York. Amazing game. I mean, one of the best games we're going to see in a long time.
Yes.
And here's the thing, and I wrote about this for fullcourtpress.bulletin.com about the atmosphere in Madison Square Garden, because the game itself was awesome, but the atmosphere was so pre-pandemic, where you got, there were a couple of folks who were staggering out of the Garden who had a little bit too much to drink. You got dirty rappers all over the floor. You got fans screaming. You got just afterwards you're ringing in your ears because people were screaming so long and so loud. It was as if there never was a stoppage of play. It really felt like a real NBA game, and then the game itself was amazing. Jalen Brown.
Whew. Talk about him.
My goodness. I mean, straight out of protocol. JB, 46 points in 46 minutes.
With symptoms.
Were you as just shocked and amazed as we were at the way he played?
I was more shocked because he had just came off of the COVID protocol, and specifically because he mentioned how he had been having a little bit of trouble breathing. And that's the thing where, for basketball, for you to have the endurance to play not a full game, but a game with 2 overtimes, that's what really shocked me. And obviously, to see the way he was on fire on the floor, to drop 46, to break, his name was mentioned with Bob Cousy and Paul Pierce for breaking overall record for the Celtics, all-time scoring record for most points in a season opener. And I'm just like, when your name is put in sentence with legends, you already know you're doing something well. And he just went out of the park.
I'm thinking, because I was in New York at the game, and what really jumped out to me about Jalen, not only was he scoring, but it was the way that he was scoring. I mean, Jalen was finishing at the rim, knocking down 3 balls, 8 of them last I checked. And one of them, he even hit the Lillard logo 3 ball, the one that brought them just a little bit closer to sending that thing into the first overtime. And Jalen, again, every year he comes back with some part of his game that we did not anticipate would be as exceptional or impactful as it was. I thought his range with that logo 3 ball was something that I don't think Jalen had. I don't know if I've ever seen him take a deep 3. Because even when he's kind of, just bringing the ball up and folks give him space, he's not. He doesn't normally strike me as a deep 3 ball taker. But he knocked the one down that mattered most, and the handle was tight. I mean, splitting defenders, getting to his spots. Jalen Brown, on a night when there were so many other guys who had so much more, I would say, added incentive to go out there and put up big numbers, he was the best player on the floor. And no disrespect to Julius Randle, because Julius Randle, as someone who back in the day liked to play bully ball, I respect what Julius Randle was doing. That was bully ball 101. Any kids out there, if you want to know what this bully ball at the highest level looked like, take a look at that first game between the Celtics and watch Julius Randle, because that's all he did. I don't want to talk about Grant Williams, because anything I would say about Grant Williams at this point in time would not be nice. But Julius Randle put him in the blender multiple times. I felt really bad for Grant, because I think Grant's a better player than what we saw. But if that was the first time you've seen Grant Williams play, you're thinking like, why is this dude in the NBA again?
Right.
It was bad. It was really bad. But as good as Jalen was, Jason Tatum, not so much. Could not make a shot. Could not make a shot. I was a little surprised. I don't know how you saw, but I was a little surprised that Tatum struggled the way he did.
I wasn't. I'm never surprised when either of those players either do poorly or play well, because as we've talked about in previous episodes, when one is doing well, it seems as though the other is suffering in some form. And obviously for Tatum, it was his shooting. He had the hustle, obviously, but everyone, you go to NBA Twitter and there was just a huge disappointment. One theory is because he was wearing a Lakers jersey earlier that day in the
commercial. The Lakers curse.
So I think that could be related, but I was definitely just disappointed, but definitely not surprised, because everyone's going to have an off day. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be your season opener.
Yeah, and just for folks, just so they know what we're talking about, he did this kind of reenactment of a Kobe Bryant moment for the NBA. I think it's part of their 75th anniversary series of events, and obviously, it's well documented that Kobe Bryant was Jason Tatum's favorite player, the guy that really gave him that passion to play basketball, and certainly Celtics fans were in their feelings about that. They made it very clear that they did not feel good about that, and you wonder if there's just a little bit of Laker mojo with that. But here's the thing: Tatum is good for a game like that, or two or three every year he's been in the league, and so I'm okay with that, because here's the thing: I would have been more disturbed if Tatum had a rough shooting night like that, and it was because R.J. Barrett was locking him up. R.J. Barrett is not a lock him up type of defender. Not even close. And it's funny listening to like folks in New York who talk about, oh, he had Tatum locked up. I'm sorry, but if Tatum misses like 12 open jump shots, that does not qualify you as locking him up.
Yeah.
That qualifies him as having a bad-ass shooting night.
Yeah, I agreed with that one.
But listen, if that helps him sleep at night and feel better about their team, go ahead and feel that way. But Tatum had a horrible shooting night, and I wasn't as discouraged as a lot of people are, because he was still able to get to the spots he wants. The one knock on Jason that I had, that was my big issue, was he didn't try to attack that defense more. He didn't try to get into the paint and force contact or force them to just really move more defensively. And that, for a guy like Tatum, I kind of understand why he doesn't, because Tatum's a hell of a shooter. And if a dude is supposed to be guarding you and you're wide open, you're supposed to knock that shot down. And he didn't do as good a job with that as he should have. But again, I'm not losing sleep over Tatum having a rough opening night.
And he was very aware of it. There were points in the game where he had the clear shot, and you notice he made that extra pass to Jalen because he knew Jalen was on fire that last night, or the night they were playing. So he's very self-aware, which is something that you do need, that basketball intelligence to say, all right, I'm not having a good night. Even though I'm open, let me just make that extra pass and see what happens, because I don't want to jeopardize our possession because I already know that I can't play at this moment.
Well, Jalen made a lot of folks' numbers look better than their actual play was. I mean, Dennis Schroeder, and again, I give Dennis a lot of credit. He made sure when he got in the game, he got that damn ball to JB. And he had like 8 assists, and I think maybe 5 or 6 of them were to Jalen Brown. Which again, that's just being smart about your game and about what you can do to help the team. But overall, though, I mean, this was one of those games where again there just wasn't enough second line support. Schroeder did not. I think he had a great game. I thought he did some nice things, but he didn't play great. And Romeo Langford had another really good game. He had like 10 points. But the problem was that he was getting a lot of that action filling in for either Jalen or Jason. And down the stretch, you had to have those two out there. And Romeo didn't really see much time down the stretch, even though he had been playing a pretty good game. And again, it's one of those catch-22s. I mean, do you play the young guy who is playing better in stretches than Tatum? Or do you go with the two-time All-Star who's on a max contract, who their play will have a heavy impact on you keeping your damn job more than just a year or 2 or 3. So those were some of the things that Ime, certainly had to kind of really make split decisions on about. And again, I thought overall, there were more encouraging things about this game than I felt discouraged about. But the guy that I just mentioned briefly, Romeo Langford, who, John Zanis and the Garden Report crew know I got all Romeo stock. I got it before he started balling. I took all those chips, put them on the table, and said, I'm rocking with Romeo. Mm-hmm. And Romeo is making me look really, really good right now because he is balling out. And the thing about Romeo that I like, and it sounds simple, but players screw this up all the time. Make the basic play to keep your ass on the floor. Your job is to defend, knock down open shots, run the floor, get a rebound every now and then, and you do that, you're going to play. And that's literally all Romeo is doing. He's knocking down open shots, and he's shooting with confidence, something that I don't think he always played with since he's been a Celtic. And part of that has to do with injuries and things like that. He's healthy now, knock on wood, knocking down shots, doing all the things that are going to allow him to play consistent minutes.
Agreed.
Now, that being said, it was not a perfect game, obviously, because they didn't win. When you think back to that game, what did you like about just their play overall, Kwani, and what did you not like so much?
Well, I definitely liked them on offense, obviously, even though that was mainly Jalen Brown carrying them. But I think there was definitely what they call Celtics basketball of being intentional with who you're passing to, finding ways to get open. Obviously, defensively, they couldn't stop Randall, but
right.
It's one game, and I definitely want to see more from a few of the players on the Celtics. But overall, you can't. I feel like there's so much criticism you can do when a team goes into double overtime. And honestly, I was shocked when I saw that final shot go in from Marcus Smart. Like, I did not expect the game to get back to where it was. And then after the first overtime, I was like, all right. At first, I tweeted, "Are the Knicks good?" And then I realized, all right, maybe just the Celtics are playing very poorly at this moment. And then the final conclusion is that the Knicks will be a good team to watch this season, but also the Celtics clearly have a lot of work to do, and they're not the way that they've been projected. They're going to have to work on getting that focus and getting that chemistry, so to speak, of being consistent and staying strong throughout the game.
Well, here's the thing. Even though the Celtics lost, I still feel after watching them play the Knicks, the Celtics are the better team. And here's why. The one guy that really put the Celtics in a bind was Julius Randle. And the one guy that you have that has the ability to neutralize, certainly not going to shut him down, but certainly neutralize guys like Julius Randle is Al Horford. And you didn't have him available. And that, to me, Al Horford is one of those X factor guys as well, because there are going to be certain matchups that the Celtics will have this year where Al's role will be so big. And New York is one of them. If these two meet in the playoffs, I like the Celtics' chances if they've got their full allotment of players available. Al Horford is that important in that particular matchup because of his ability to deal with Julius Randle. And frankly, him and Rob Williams, I think that's a major problem for Julius Randle if you get into a playoff situation. If he has both of those guys available out there trying to defend him, because Grant Williams, this was just a rough game for Grant. I mean, Julius just absolutely devoured him. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And again,
Josh Richardson being in the game too would have, I think, made a bigger of a difference on defense.
That would have been another body you could have thrown at Fournier, who had a big game.
Yeah, who just decided, you know what, I'm playing my old team. I have a bone to pick, apparently, because I was like, where was this when you were in Boston?
It is Celtic-itis at its best, and that is when guys leave, come back, and they just absolutely go off.
Who is this man?
We see it happen all the time with these guys. But again, I was probably more encouraged by what I saw from the Celtics than discouraged. And again, without Al around, without Josh Richardson around, those are two guys. They're not going to make or break your franchise. But there's certain matchups where, there's certain matchups where their presence is a big deal to your team because of the domino effect that you don't have to go through in order to get them on the court. And speaking of games played, we're really, it's more like folks who are getting played by the game. And I'm talking about Philadelphia, Ben Simmons, and all that drama that just keeps giving us more drama. Just when we think we're about to reach the pinnacle of drama, it just keeps coming back. And the latest is with Ben. Obviously, he returned to the team, and they were hoping that would kind of thaw the ice a little bit, get them back on track. And then Ben gets suspended for the first game of the season because he doesn't want to do some drills that Doc Rivers wants him to do. And then they decide, well, let's just start preparing for, the next game. And he has an individual workout that he was supposed to partake in. But Ben had a little bit of a sore, achy back. His team gives him some treatments. He's cleared to resume. And then he just kind of dips. And so this is getting to the point where Doc Rivers and the Sixers are going to have to take some drastic measures. To me, they're really at this point, there are only two things you can do. You either pull the Brooklyn card where you just basically say he's on the team, but he will not be engaged in any way, shape, or form with the team, or you start talking about a buyout. And I know they don't want to do that because the amount of money that they would have to give Ben is insane. But even worse than that, the possibility of him signing with a rival for pennies on a dollar is even more problematic for them. So one of the things, and their GM, Daryl Morey, sorry about that. Daryl was talking on a radio station, and he brought up an interesting point about how this may linger for 4 years. And I'm thinking he's 100% bullshit about that. But there really isn't a whole lot of incentive for the Sixers to just take a bad deal, which is what everyone is offering them at this point. So how do you think this is going to play out, knowing how this is played out already?
I've seen a lot of negative comments reacting to the way he's been treated and acting towards the Sixers. And my first reaction to all of it is the fact that why would you put in so much energy knowing that it's like going to a workplace where your boss doesn't like you, your coworkers don't like you. Yes, you have a job to do, and yes, you should be doing it, but what would be the motivation to be great? And for him, I think that's where it comes down to. He has no motivation to do anything for that organization. And I don't understand the people that criticize him, because if you were in the same predicament, you probably feel the exact same way. Yes, he has the privilege of being a millionaire, so it's different because, we have to go to work generally. But the way that people have taken sides in this debate, I don't really like it, because we've seen Anthony Davis do it. We've seen James Harden do it. A lot of players in the NBA have been strategic about figuring out that if they don't want to be in a city, I'm going to figure out somewhere else to go. And that's what Ben Simmons is doing now. And he's getting a completely different treatment from every other NBA superstar that's done so. So I don't know what's next. I really do think that they need to figure out a way to just offload that contract, whether that is trading him. And I understand the competition in the league. You don't want to send him to another team to be good, but would you rather just have a roster spot that is wasting away than at least have someone that's motivated to play and motivated to do well? I think with any team, wouldn't you rather that spot be filled with a mediocre player, for lack of a better description, versus someone that's not motivated at all? I would rather take the player that's willing to be in the game when I need him. At least you have a body on the floor. And right now, obviously, Ben Simmons is not doing that in practice, let alone a game.
Right. I knew you were going to work that in there.
I had to.
Listen, their GM Daryl Morey, he brought up an interesting point on a radio show, and I think it's what it's ultimately going to come down to for Philly to decide which of these paths they're going to take. And he talked about how, if is it better to eliminate a distraction or to lower your odds of winning in the playoffs? Because you can easily trade Ben Simmons today, but you will do so and lower your chances of having a deep playoff run, because whatever you get in return at this point is going to be of less value than what you are sending out. So you are going to eliminate the distraction, which is a positive, but you're going to take back less talent, which is a negative. How do you find that happy medium, which is what the Sixers are looking to do? Now, here's my thing with what you said, Kwani. I think the criticism that Ben is getting is absolutely warranted because the criticism that he's getting is based on his performance. It's based on his play, or I should say non-play. When you are making the kind of money that he is, you have the position that he is, there's an expectation that when the big games are there and those moments are in front of you, you at least meet those moments. You don't have to always be successful. In other words, to me, the only bad shot down the stretch is a shot not taken. Because bottom line, that's the only way that you can guarantee you're not going to fail is to not try to succeed. And that is the issue that the Sixers had with Ben. He has been there long enough to where there's a clear and undeniable flaw in his game, like every NBA player does. Every NBA player has a weakness. He's the only superstar I know in the NBA right now, and I can't even call him a superstar. He's a very good player. The only very good player in the NBA right now who has a clear flaw that has done nothing at this point in his career to get better at that. And that is inexcusable to be where he's at. And frankly, Ben is, again, a very good player. But when you are being put in a position to be a great player and you talk about wanting to be a great player, you gotta be there in the good and the not so good times. I mean, it's to the point now where, and the point that you made, Kwani, about just being somewhere where you're not wanted, the reason he's not wanted is because he doesn't want to do the things to be wanted.
Better. Yeah, that's a good point.
If he shot like 20% from three-point range and he averaged 2 or 3 threes a game, fans would be cool with that because that's like, okay, he's trying to get better. He's not very good at that now, but damn, at least he's trying to get better. Ben's not even trying to get better. In fact, he's regressing. When you are in a game 7 situation, you got the ball in your hands, there's nothing between you and that damn rim but air, and you decide to pass the ball to a guy that's like 2-3 years younger than you in the league who shoots free throws as bad or worse than you do, and then after the game you admit that you passed the ball because you thought you might get fouled, dude, you playing scared. Not scared, scared. Mm-hmm. We don't want to play with dudes who play scared. That's the issue that I and so many people have with Ben Simmons, is that he has regressed from a guy who had a clear and undeniable weakness to his game that you could see getting better if he worked at it, to someone who's scared to work on his game in that particular area to get better at it. And to me, if that's how you want to be, okay, but take that to Sacramento. Take that to Oklahoma City. Take that to a city in a place where you can be a very good player and have a very good career and not have the pressure of being a great player, because you clearly don't want to be that dude. And Philadelphia, the problem that they have is they're trying to convince teams that he wants to be that dude. That, if you trade for Ben, you're going to get a great player. He's got a number of years in his contract. He's going to be a great addition. If you just give us that young superstar that you got and a couple of draft picks, we'll just make this go away nice and easy. And teams are like, nah, bro. Nah. We not falling for that okie doke. That dude's got
honestly, to that point, what if he really is just fed up with playing in Philly and does need a clean slate in a new city? What if he goes to Sacramento and he is lights out because he's actually with an organization that give him not only a fresh start, but they believe in him enough and are willing to give him that opportunity? I understand that when he got drafted, all this pressure was put on him. Honestly, it was deserved, but at the same time, all of these guys, when they get drafted, they're the godsends, they're the next LeBron James, and then people get upset because they're not living up to the standard that was expected. But you also have to consider the pressure that you put on a 19, 18-year-old coming out of college, and telling them that they're the next face of a franchise. And for him, I think that was the situation. And I'm not excusing the way he's regressed, but I'm also thinking at this point, he really needs to just move to another city and start over, because it's not working in Philly. And no matter what he may be doing in practice on his own or whatever, we're not gonna see that growth because he's not playing and not practicing in Philly.
No, we're not gonna see that. And I gotta be honest with you, showing me like like 15-second videos with you shooting threes with
Yeah, I don't know.
Rajon
That's what I
Rondo?
mean. That doesn't count to me. Like, okay, you worked out with Jalen Brown, cool.
No, but
But I want to see actual NBA play, but we're not going to see that in Philly anymore. So they need to let go, send them somewhere else.
Yeah, I can't let him off the hook with the whole youth thing because he's 25 years old at this point. He's been in the league long enough to where he is a grown ass man who knows what he needs to do. I mean, it's to the point where it feels like spitting in the wind when you talk about Ben Simmons and becoming a better shooter. It's not even about making the shots, it's about taking the shots. That's the problem that I have with him now. Before, when he wasn't when he was just passing the ball and getting other guys involved and doing a great job with that, you could kind of look past that. And Doc Rivers certainly tried to do that, where he talked about how his ability to finish at the rim is uncanny because of his size and strength and all that. It's true. But Doc Rivers has been in the league both as a player and a coach long enough to know that whatever your strengths are, there are going to be people who will force you to go to counters. You have to have a plan B, C, and D if you are going to be an A-list baller in the NBA. And Ben Simmons has a clear area that you can take away from him, which is that drive, and force him to be more of a shooter. And he's been trying to figure out ways to get around not being a shooter. And it's getting to the point where they're just too smart. They've seen enough of you to know how to minimize that part of your game somewhat. And the fact that you're not even trying. So I have major issues with him. And as much as I would love, because again, I like Ben Simmons' game. I really do. I hate the fact that he just doesn't want to get better. And that's something that in a lot of fans, that's the problem with him. And the fresh start thing, Kwani, I think it's a great idea, but there is lots of proof that even with a fresh start, he's still going to be Ben Simmons. He's still going to be that stubborn dude who does not want to take shots when they're there. But I tell you what, Brooklyn could probably use a dude like Ben Simmons right about now.
Right.
Brooklyn could probably use a Ben Simmons because the Kyrie Irving-less Nets did not look good. In that open and full. Let's be honest. They're playing. They played the Milwaukee Bucks on opening night when Milwaukee got the big fat rings, and I just remember watching it was just the weirdest thing. They're looking at Giannis, or they're showing Giannis getting his ring, and he's happy and he's smiling, he's all that, and then after he gets his ring, he goes back to the group, and it was like strictly business. Like, let's go. Let's go. I know I got this 22-pound thing on my damn finger, but hold my ring. It was just like, hold my ring. Some folks is hold your beer. It's like, hold my rings. We about to bust them. Brooklyn is not going to win a championship without Kyrie Irving. It is that cut. It is that simple. James Harden and Kevin Durant, the idea that both of those guys are going to be healthy, relatively 100%, as close to 100% as possible come playoff time, with no Kyrie Irving all season long, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And they've got some nice role players, but we were talking about this before. When your role players now all of a sudden move up the food chain a little bit and the expectations are graded and they have to do more things, at some point you're going to be reminded as to why they weren't in that role in the first place. Like when the backup becomes a starter, at some point as a starter, you're going to find out why they were a backup before. And Brooklyn, I think they've got a lot of good pieces, but I just don't think a Kyrie Irvingless team is going to be enough to get out of the East, because I'm looking at those Bucks who, and I've spent some time around some of those players, leading up to the season. They ready. They are ready. They got. And the way that Milwaukee has set up their team, they are the blueprint that teams who are looking to build consistent title contending teams want. You've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. You've got Drew Holiday. You've got Chris Middleton. Those three, that's your big three. Those guys are signed for at least 2 more years after this season. So your core ain't going nowhere for the next couple seasons. Whereas Brooklyn, you got KD, Kyrie, you're not offering him an extension anymore. And then you got James Harden, who you have offered an extension for, but he's like,
he don't know he's gonna take it now. Yeah,
so there's a lot of uncertainty about your future. There's a lot of uncertainty about your present, and that is a bad cocktail to mix together when you try and win a championship. So Kyrie Irving, the domino effect that his decision to not be vaccinated is having on the NBA is incredible, because while he may believe it's a personal choice, the impact that it is having on so many others is incredible.
Yeah, he needs to figure out what he's gonna do. I know he already made the decision that he's not going to get vaccinated, but at this point, I mean, not even him, honestly. The front office needs to figure out what their next steps are going to be, because this is not a viable option at this point for Brooklyn. Better luck for the Celtics at this point. That's for me. I'm looking at these teams in the East that are going through all the drama, and I'm like, all right, let them shoot themselves in the foot, because that just opens the pathway a little bit more for the Celtics fans that are looking for their team to make it a little further down the Eastern Conference. So.
Well, absolutely. I mean, now you feel as though you got a punch or shot against both of those teams, because a key piece to their success is not going to be in the mix, or is at least looking that way. It's particularly with Philadelphia, because Ben Simmons, he does as good a job as anyone in the NBA defending Jason Tatum. And when you lose the one guy who matches up well with the other team's best guy, that's a problem. That becomes it, because now all of a sudden you've got to slide someone else over to handle that business, and then they will get the business. And that means whoever you got dealing with Jalen Brown, they're going to get the business. And so there's this domino effect where you're going to, other than Joel Embiid, you're going to get progressively weaker at almost every other spot because you don't have Ben. So Philadelphia becomes a very vulnerable team for the Celtics to kind of leapfrog over. And Brooklyn, I don't think they'll leapfrog over Brooklyn, but I do think that in a playoff series, if Kevin Durant and James Harden, if one or both of those guys is significantly or noticeably not 100% health-wise, they become very vulnerable, because a one-man team of James Harden or one-man team of Kevin Durant, you feel pretty good about your chances if you're the Celtics, if that's what you're dealing with. Obviously, they've got the other guys who can play, and no disrespect to the Bruce Browns and some of the other cats that they got on that team who are good ballers. But in a best-of-7 series, if you don't have a healthy Kevin Durant and a healthy James Harden, you are not that healthy.
Yeah.
You're not going to be nearly as dominant as you on paper could be. And again, it all comes back to Kyrie Irving. And then I remember when Kyrie Irving made the decision not to come back to Boston, which came after he said he was coming back to Boston, which is a whole nother
thing. If you'll have me, fans, I'd love to come back.
That's good, Kwani. I like that. You should be Kyrie Irving for Halloween. That's what we should all be Kyrie Irving for Halloween, and just say what we're gonna do, and then we
not do it.
Yeah, like, if you give me this candy, I will not be back next year, and then come back 5 minutes later. I changed my mind. I'm back. Give me some more candy.
I like that.
The thing about just the impact that he's had on the league is just it's amazing to me. It really is. But
it just goes to show the power of being an NBA player at the end of the day.
Yeah, but it also, with Kyrie and again, not kind of beating the Ben Simmons horse to death, but we're gonna whack it two more times.
Okay.
But Ben is a different player than Kyrie, different player than James Harden, different player than Anthony Davis. All of those guys were face of the franchise players. And so when they pull that, I want to get out of this situation and I'm going to do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. They did that from the ultimate position of power. They were the best thing that their franchises had going. Ben, you're a clear number 2. You're like, you're the Scottie Pippen of the Joel Embiid. Yeah, you are the really high profile supporting actor in the play. But you ain't. But when the lights come on and everyone is looking for the main attraction, you're on the stage, but you ain't in that spotlight. And so when you're trying to flex, like he's trying to flex now, they're just like, wait a minute. I think you forgot your place in the pecking order, son. you may be important, but you are not the main attraction. And even though we're paying you main attraction money, we know better. And unfortunately for the Sixers, so do the other 29 teams in the league know better. Ben Simmons is going to be a difficult one for them to move because there are very few teams that see him as the number one option. And if I'm paying number one option money for a guy who is clearly not that, what exactly is my incentive to do that anyway? Unless I've got a roster full with guys that I don't want to deal with, who have contracts that I don't want to pay out, then we can talk. But that's not what Philly wants. They want a legitimate star. They want like a Dame Lillard or someone of that ilk where when you make that trade, there's going to be buzz in a positive way for you. But if you're making a trade and you're getting like, the backup small forward and the third string center and 3 draft picks, people are going to be looking at Daryl Morey like, what the hell are you doing? Absolutely. What in the hell are you doing? And that's what they're trying to avoid. They want this trade to be a splashy move, an impactful player. And I get that. All teams want to do that. But the difference is this. They have a player they're trying to move who has some legitimate character issues and concerns. I mean, it wasn't the fact that he just shrunk in the moment of that one playoff game. It's the fact that he shrunk in the moment of that one playoff game. He hasn't shown the willingness to get better, and that stubbornness is going to be a problem.
Yeah. Rich Paul has his work cut out for him when it comes to really convincing a franchise to scoop him up under their wing because
a lot of people think that the Lakers are kind of maybe a default organization that maybe they would take him on. But if I'm LeBron, I'm not sure I want this dude on my roster.
But if you're LeBron, you're not going to that LA team and acting dumb. You're gonna be motivated to play. Come on now.
Right. And well, the thing about the Lakers now, and again, the Lakers, they got all the OGs. I mean, they got all the OGs of the last decade on their team. It is like a fantasy league for the 35 and up.
He could gain from that wisdom of playing under all those people that actually have, honestly, not that LeBron has more patience, but I think working under a player like LeBron versus, as we've seen, a Joel Embiid who said, I'm not here to babysit. LeBron's also not here to babysit. Let me be clear about that. But again, I just think it's soured. Like, that's really all I can say. It's soured in Philly. It's never going to work out, and he really needs to go. Anywhere he goes, I'm willing to put money on it that he would actually be motivated to be better. Like, I really do think that.
I think the key for him is go to a small market. Because if you go to a small market, you become a big fish. You become a big fish in a little pond, and they will be more than happy for you to never take a three-point shot in the rest of your life, as long as you're giving them those 20 points, 7-8 rebounds, 9-10 assists, and team lose by 3, and you don't go to the playoffs, and you have a great season where you win like 38 games. That could be Ben Simmons' future. But if he's like somewhat serious about playing for teams that are title contenders or building towards that, he's got to change himself. And he's got to convince other teams that he's willing to change. And that's where, to me, Rich Paul, that's going to be the challenge that he's going to have, is convincing teams that Ben is willing to make the necessary changes in his game, in his career, in his approach to leadership that you need to have in order to feel comfortable bringing him into the fold. I've mentioned Sacramento many, many times because I think, honestly, that's the one team that has a lot of talented young pieces that they could cobble together that the Sixers would have some interest in. And Sacramento, they're not winning no damn title anytime soon. They know that. We know that. They could benefit from the attention that he would bring to their organization, the fact that he does have the type of game that if he's going out there getting you 25, 12, and 7 and you lose by 6, people are still going to watch that game because of what he can do. Now, is he going to help you win? I don't think he's going to significantly help you in that regard, but that's the choice that you have to make. Are you more concerned about trying to build a team that might win, or are you trying to build a team that might be relevant outside of wins and losses? And Sacramento, again, it's a tough call for them because I like the direction they're headed. They've got some nice young pieces that I think if they can just really kind of galvanize that together and keep willing to develop them, I think there could be a legitimate playoff team in the next 2-3 years.
Tristan Thompson looks like he likes basketball again. I mean, I know it's just a snapshot of practice, but they posted a video and I was like, who's that? And it was Tristan Thompson. So
exactly.
That team does look good, though.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely, I think their future is bright if they can just keep building on that. But if they come to this revelation that we might get up to maybe the 6th best team in the West, but damn, is that really which is a greater benefit to us? Being like maybe the 6th best team in the West, or having a Ben Simmons for the next 3-4 years, and the amount of attention and media draw that's going to have. And that has to weigh into the decisions that these front offices make as far as box office draw potential. And so that's a team I just think is always going to be somewhere in the ethosphere, in atmosphere when it comes to possible landing spots for Ben. Yeah. But
okay, back to the Celtics though, because
I was about to say this is not the Ben Simmons podcast.
Really isn't. They have the Raptors up next. What are you looking forward to from that game?
Well, I'm looking for a better game from Jason Tatum. I think that has to be a given. I'm a little concerned about Toronto because the Celtics are a better team. That's not debatable. But Toronto is coming off of their opener where there are a lot of their key guys did not play particularly well. And I'm thinking specifically about my man Fred VanVleet, who
played well against the Celtics, though.
Yeah, but he was only 5 for 20 in his first game. And so my thinking is he's probably going to be on that Tatum program where he's going to play a lot better. And that makes me a little bit nervous because I think he's a really, really good player. I want to see Josh Richardson back. I think that's a guy that this will be a really good game for him to be of some impact because he'll at times will be out there defending Fred VanVleet. Marcus Smart, I'm hoping that the Celtics with Marcus Smart as the playmaker will do a little bit more of moving the needle in the direction that Ime Udoka wants them to, and that is getting other guys involved, keep the ball movement. They did that in spurts in that first game, and they looked really good when they did it. And then they got into the hero ball game again where, they're bringing the ball down and they're taking a shot early in the shot clock, or they're bringing the ball down and having it just stick to one side of the floor and then without reversing it to just force the defense to move a little bit. I hope they get back to doing the things that Ime has talked about wanting to do. So I think they'll win. I feel good about their chances of winning. I expect them to win by like 8, 9, 10 points, something like that. But they need to be more of a reflection of their coach than we saw in first game.
Yeah, a more cohesive unit, really. And it's even people are, I mean, they're not forgetting, but it is Ime Udoka's second NBA regular season game. So I think it's going to be a learning process for everyone on that team, figuring out how he calls out to them on the side, like figuring out how the team is working. I know they still haven't really figured out, obviously, their lineups and what works on the floor. So there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made. It's going to be a process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of just the growth of your team, particularly when you have a new leader coming in with a different mindset. I mean, Ime is about he's grimy.
Yeah,
there's a lot of griminess to him.
Yeah.
And I think for some players that's like yes.
Yeah.
And for others, just like oh shit.
Yeah, like I have to actually work now.
Yeah, he's like damn. He got mad at me because I didn't get back on defense. I was trying to get a call.
Yeah.
So that it's going to take some guys, I think, a little bit of time to really adjust. And this will be the last thing I say about Grant Williams, I promise. But I thought it was really interesting that Grant Williams was basically yanked, during the preseason when he just didn't get back on defense. And then first game of the season, Ime has him in the starting lineup. And the message that sends the players is, look, I'm going to put you in check when you do wrong, but don't think for a minute that puts you in the doghouse or that it's going to linger, that there's a residual negative impact on me, putting you in check and really disciplining you. And it's going to affect how I view you going forward. And I thought it was really interesting how that was clear in how he dealt with Grant. It was clear in how he dealt with Marcus Smart, who was suspended for missing the flight, but that didn't prevent him from leaning on Marcus for a large chunks of the first game. And some coaches and players, they've been around the game, and I've seen this happen where there will be an issue that comes up, and even though the players are kind of ready to move on from it, the coach ain't quite ready to move on, and the coach start making some decisions that don't really make sense other than the fact that he's trying to send a message, even though the message has already been sent. He's like literally beating that damn gnat with a sledgehammer, and the player's just like, Coach, I was wrong, you was right. Can we just keep it moving?
But they need the discipline.
And Ime seems to be about that KIM life. Just keep it moving. Yep, Grant, you screwed up. Sit your ass down. Oh, by the way, you start in first game.
Yeah, you discipline them and then you move on and you hope they learn the lesson. And if it happens again, you rinse, repeat. And that seems like a healthy coaching strategy to me.
Yeah, it does. And it makes a lot of sense. And again, the fact that Ime has at some point already disciplined some of the better players and some of the not great players.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like, oh, damn. I mean, I might actually be checked, even though I'm like one of the top 3 players in the squad. There's no velvet rope. There's no VIP lane.
I mean, honestly, it's Belichickian in a way where players would say how Tom Brady got yelled at just as the third string wide receiver would. And that's the way you should do it, because if you don't, then that's how the egos get in the way and players come in thinking that they don't have to work. And with that method, you set that playing field of anyone can take your job, which is what the NBA is. Everyone's hungry for that starting role. So show me why you deserve it. Show me why, despite the money, I need to put you in before this guy, because he clearly is motivated enough despite not having a contract.
Exactly. All right, Kwani. Lots of good stuff as always. NBC 10's Kwani A. Lunis. What you got coming up on NBC 10?
I finally finished the hub today in Roxbury, so that's getting put together. I'm not sure exactly when it'll air, but if it hasn't aired by the next episode of the A-List, I'll definitely make sure to let you know where to watch it. I'm excited about it, though, because we went to some really cool spots in Boston. And then I actually have an interview with Jordan Childs. If you followed the Olympics, she was the woman that stepped in for Simone Biles when she got the twisties. So I'm going to be interviewing her. I'm thinking it's going to be 10 questions, but it might not actually get to 10 questions. But either way, I'm excited to hear her perspective and that Olympian mentality of what it was like to be in Tokyo, especially during still a pandemic as well. What about you?
Nice. Let's see. I did a piece a few days ago just on the Milwaukee Bucks, just the lack of respect that they're getting, that they had coming to the season. And I did that for Bleacher Report. And for Ebony, I just wrote about Dawn Staley, who just got the Brinks truck.
Money.
And the cool thing about Dawn Staley is that as much as it's great that she got the money, she's been very outspoken about pay equity. And I wrote about just how, that to me is going to be her legacy for the game of women's basketball, because I do believe that she's going to be the blueprint for other highly successful women coaches to get paid like their male counterparts. And so I was really excited to just kind of delve into that a little bit, and just doing a lot of different Celtics centric content for my newsletter, fullcourtpress.bulletin.com.
I got it today.
I will be banging out content for that. There'll be something up over the weekend, Friday or Saturday, just looking ahead to the Toronto game and just kind of laying out just some of the different issues that the league is dealing with now, and with player empowerment, not quite what they thought it was going to be. This is not how this was supposed to go.
Right. So I think I signed up too many times for your newsletter, because I get it 3 times in a row every morning, or every time you write it at least.
Well, good.
Morning.
Good. The more the merrier.
Sherrod Blakely. I'm like, I get it.
In case you didn't get it 16 seconds ago, we're gonna make sure you
read it again.
Read it one more time. But so again, just this is a great time of year where there's so much going on. When we're not even talking about the Red Sox and what they're doing, which is having an awesome season.
I mean,
the Patriots season in full bloom. It's a little different around Patriotville now than it has been past years, which is interesting in itself. And the Celtics Bruins are just kind of getting this thing started. So lots of great
don't
stuff
forget
happening.
the New England Revolution that are still
The
killing
champs.
it in MLS. So please put some respect on their name as well, because
they have been really good. They have been really good. No, you're right, Kwani. You're right. You're right.
I'll pay attention.
You're absolutely right. Way to show your well-roundedness, Kwani A. Lunis. For Kwani A. Lunis, I'm A. Sherrod Blakely, and this is the A-List Podcast, and we are